Well, folks, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. This threw me for a loop. This gentleman's people reached out to me last week, and I listened to the tunes. I said, we got to get this guy on. We have none other than Sin Quirin. And I don't even want to give an intro other than I want you to tell folks what you're pushing right now, because I was just whoa when I listened to
it. Well, thank you very much for the kind words and introduction there. So I've got my new project called Siglos, which is, as we were discussing a little while ago, a little different than what people know me for. You know, I know people are associate me with ministry, and that's fine. Who I was with for 15 years. This project is even a little heavier than that, if you can believe that. And it's a first for me to do something with this sort of black metal, vocal approach to the songs that I've written. So it's a little much for some people, but I understand. I get it. I'm very excited about it. I've never done anything like this with this kind of vocal. So I don't know. It's kind of like renewed my energy and my vibe for this heavy music, because it seems like it's brand new to me. So.
Well, in full disclosure, I mean, I was always a guy that kind of grew up in the hair metal genre, and I would not necessarily shade to that. The last few years I have and listen, I'm trying to listen to different things, but when I listen to it, I couldn't put my finger on where the influences were coming from.
Yeah, they're coming, and it's funny you mentioned that too, man, because I'm born and raised in LA. I caught the tail end of the whole Sunset Strip thing out here. Like I was around when I was a kid, early teen, but when Guns N' Roses at the Troubadour, Motley at the Whiskey. I can't even tell you how many times I saw Poison, either at the Roxy, Gazzari's, all those places. So I saw all those bands, and I'm not ashamed of it. To me, music is a universal thing, and you dig it. There's no guilty pleasure in it for me. It's you dig it or you don't. And so a lot of my influences were those bands as well, but also bands from LA that were in. They were metal bands, but like bands like Warrior, Malice, Rough Cut, those kinds of bands that were a little heavier than, like, say, the glammier metal bands and stuff like that. But fast forward, to years down the road, I heard ministry, to be honest with you, when I was in high school, and it was a very influential band for me. And even in my first bands that I was in, I'd be driving to my rehearsals and, cranking ministry. And back then they weren't as known as they became to be. But I remember telling my band members, man, we got to do something like this. And it always stuck out in my head. So as far as influences go and what they come down to, I'm bringing the industrial thing. I'm bringing the sort of black metal thing, doom metal, whatever you want to call it. There's so many subgenres, but I'm trying to do with Siglos is still bring my writing, which is the writing that I did in ministry for 15 years, but sort of mixing it in with this black metal vocal approach, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I want to cover the tunage here in a second, but your press kit comes across the wire, and two great quotes, Gary Holt, Dave Ellison. Those just aren't a couple of guys that were kind of walking around doing nothing. Significant people with significant careers. I'm assuming you know them, but for those guys to say that they're impressed with your project has to mean a lot.
Man, I can't tell you how grateful I am to those guys. Gary Holt is one of the man, what can I say about that guy? One of the best human beings out there. Same thing for my very good friend, Dave Ellison. We've been friends many years. I love that guy. I love both of those guys. I'm very humbled that those guys, sort of stepped up and wanted to contribute some quotes, about my project. So it's a very humbling thing to have those guys, in that press release.
So, you're working with, obviously ministry, you're working with a bunch of other artists throughout your career. You finally decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a flyer here. I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to do it myself. How long ago did that happen? And I guess what was the process? Because, obviously if you're playing in a band like that, I'm not going to say there's security in music, but if you've got a gig for 15 years, you're not sticking around because it's not successful. But then to just leave it and kind of go out on your own, that's a big deal. So what was the process for you?
Well, several different reasons. And it was something that had been in the works for me for several years. 15 years with them. I'm very proud of the time that I was with them. Eternally grateful to Al and the whole ministry camp for having me for 15 years. But, over the past couple of albums, for me, I was just starting to feel a little stagnant as far as my contributions and how they were ending up on the records and stuff like that. Listen, that's Al's band. He is the, end all. He's the final say in everything. And that's totally cool. Nothing wrong with that. I think I just felt like it was time for me to just kind of step out. I thought that I had done my time. I had, 15 years is a decent amount of time to be, in any type of relationship, in any capacity. So to be in a band for 15 years, especially one like ministry, it was a positive experience for me, but I just felt like I was a hamster in a wheel.
Sure.
And I just kind of wanted to jump off it, and in a weird way, the shutdown and the whole pandemic thing kind of like helped me just refocus and reevaluate a lot of things and my priorities, family, personal life, which a lot of stuff like that just kind of, falls by the wayside when you're in that sort of cycle of album tour, and you don't really realize it until you step away and you look into it and you're like, oh shit, like I didn't realize I was in that cycle. So it was a lot of different reasons, but everything's cool, everything's good. I love those guys. I wish them nothing but the best. I just felt like it was time to just kind of like do something on my own,
So you start the process. At any point did you go, maybe I didn't think this through? Although everybody second guesses themselves from time to time. Were you just all in and that was it?
Every second of every day.
Yep.
Second guessing becomes your second nature, man. And it's just something that I've learned to just push through and just continue to move forward, because I wouldn't believe someone or an artist if they ever said that they didn't second guess, a decision or their decisions and what they've made in their career. It's a daily thing for me. But at the end of the day, the positivity, the gut feeling that I have, following my heart, that just outweighs that. And I just kind of choose to just continue to like move forward.
Well, and I mean, the second guessing thing is one thing, but I'm guessing now. Correct me if I'm wrong. You made the decision you were going to do this, and then it was like, okay, I've done it. Now I got to make it happen.
Yeah, no.
So that must have been pretty exciting.
It was. It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking. It's exhilarating. All in the same, sentence. I mean, it's like you go through these moments of doubt, obviously, man, what am I doing? Did I make a right decision for myself? But the feeling of, man, yeah, I really did the right thing for me, for myself at this point in my life, has outweighed all of those things. So I'm in a very, very good place right now in my life. very happy with my personal life, that I've taken the time to kind of jump off that, that hamster wheel and just enjoy other things as well. Obviously, music is what I've been doing since I was a little kid, but during that shutdown, it kind of like reopened my eyes to other things and to sort of put focus on other things as well that are part of my life.
I asked some other people this question. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. So, as part of a band that tours and records and is out there, people don't realize how regimented your life is. Because when you're in the studio, there's a schedule. When you're on the tour, there's a schedule. All of a sudden, that all goes away. Did you struggle with that a little bit, or were you just like, I get to make my own sort of deal here now, and I can do what I want?
No, I didn't really struggle with it, to be honest with you. Early on, I'll admit, the first few tours that I did, what becomes strange is if you've never toured before, and then all of a sudden you go on tour and you're gone for, a month or 2 months, and then you're back home. That first tour or two really screws with your head because you start to get used to that motion of every day being in a different place, the constant movement, the fans, people telling you, oh, you're the greatest, blah, blah, blah. And then you come home and everything seems like it's just like you're looking at a painting, like it's just standing still. And it kind of messes with your head. But I got over that after the first couple of tours. And when I made this decision, to leave and to just kind of be on my own and just be at home, it just felt good and it felt right. And that was another reason, why I felt like I made the right decision. I just think it was time for me to just, make that move.
For sure. And, you mentioned the kind of the hero to zero factor that takes place in the music business. I mean, you're out there, you're doing that, and all of a sudden it's like last show, done. Now what? Yeah. And, I know myself from playing where you're out there and it's like, oh my God, we're on 6 weeks, and then you want to be done, but then you're done and you're going like, what the heck do I do now?
Yeah. And then you're like, man, I want to go back out, right, after being home for a couple of days. But, I think, cool. I don't know, man, it's really weird. When I was in the middle of it, I always wanted to be on tour. And, if I was home, I couldn't wait to get back out there. Now, I haven't done a show since we did the Slayer tour in November of 2019. That was the last tour I did. Wow. And I can't say that I'm like, man, I can't wait to get back out on the road. Like I can honestly say that I don't feel that. Do I want to play again? Do I want to perform? Of course. But I'm at peace, with myself at where I'm at. And all those things, just lead me back to believe that I made the right decision as to where I'm at right now, with the music and with my career and how I'm handling things. So.
Well, let's face it. It's not like you live in a crappy part of the world. You're coming to us live from Burbank, California.
Yeah, exactly. Right? 78 degrees today. There's a couple of palm trees over there.
A couple covered cars.
Yeah, a couple covered cars, not too bad. So you and in our second segment, we'll really get into the music, but just tell us how you got to start it. What just finally was like, okay, I'm going to go. How the new project got started?
Right.
So basically, during the shutdown, let me backtrack here. So after we did the Slayer tour in November of 2019, we took a couple months off, and then we were rehearsing. I guess it was what was that? March of 2020, and we were rehearsing to go to Australia and Japan to go do the download festivals out there, and that's when like the pandemic was really getting like really serious here. And we literally rehearsed up until a few days, before they shut, the flying and all that stuff down. So they canceled the festivals. They canceled, all those dates for us. And so now, we're just at home and we're thinking this thing's going to be over in like, a couple of months and we're going to get back out on the road. And obviously that didn't happen. So, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year. And then during that time, to keep myself busy, I mean, you know, I just continued to write like I always do. And I went into like hyper writing mode. Like I was just like, things were just flowing out of me. And now 2021, last year, it was February 2021, I end up in the hospital, and I end up, long story short, I end up needing 3 blood transfusions.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really serious, really scary. And that also makes you reevaluate things. Sure. You know, when you're like facing possible death, it really makes you reevaluate your life. And so thankfully I got through that. And that was probably the last thing where I was like, you know what, I really need to focus on my health here as well. And I started to make sort of like, you know, the plans to leave the band. And then shortly after that, I mean, I'd been in the studio that whole time working with my engineer producer. His name's Alex Crescioni. And man, I think we have like, I don't know, I came up with like about 12 to 15 brand new songs that we've got ready. And one of the songs was this one that turned into Por los Siglos. And that was actually the last one I think that I had written. Now, I had recently gotten into, you know, listening to a lot of like black metal and doom and death metal and stuff like that. And so for that song, I just had that type of vocal in mind. And I had mentioned that to Alex, my, you know, engineer producer. And he said, wow, you know, you should check out this guy, Pedro Sanchez. And so we did. We had him come down to the studio. He heard the song. He liked it, and next thing you know, we're in the studio tracking his vocals. And initially, that was going to be it. I was just going to have him do the one song, and I was going to have another vocalist do another song, and I was basically going to do like kind of a solo album with just a bunch of different vocalists. But I liked what he did so much, and it got me so excited about that song that I was like, man, I really want to turn this into a project. I don't want to have just one song. So we continued to write, and we're actually in the studio, you know, now. And that's how the project came to be. I mean, it was really through Alex that I was put in contact with Pedro Sanchez. And then we decided to, you know, make this an actual band.
And, you know, it's funny because those guys with that style of vocal sometimes get a bad rap. They're considered not real singers or whatever, but there's a technique to it that I
can't do it.
Right. Well, try to do it for a couple of minutes, man. You probably won't be able to talk for a week.
Yeah, man. It's like I'm gargling with old razor blades.
Right. So obviously you're planning on taking this live. Anything lined up yet, or is it in the works? Or
it's in the works. We, I mean, the next thing, obviously we released the single, we released the video. The next thing we're going to do is release the second single and second video. So that's the next thing sort of on deck. But we are talking to agents. A handful of them have reached out to us just because of the press that we've been getting. Right. And we're talking, you know, maybe something will happen late summer or fall of this year. If not next year. But we would like to take it out, you know, into a live setting, just because we think that we can bring something cool and exciting to the table.
Awesome. So I think what we're going to do, because I really want to delve into the music, we're going to call this segment number 1. Cool. And I don't know if you need to get a drink in that hot weather or whatnot.
Nah, I'm good, man.
Perfect. So
I'm a professional out here.
Yeah, that's right. So thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you for segment 2 coming up.